Hi, welcome to Baku Industries, where we combine evolution's natural efficiency with calculated human design. I am your AI guide, I am your guide, Bakula, and today, my dearest witness, I'll be introducing you to the project Brave Pilot, the latest work of the scientific department. A project developed with the intention of taking on Zainrebornu's challenge and face off against their two assets, Volans Malleus, codename Volt, and Falco Pacientia 1.1, codename Maggie. Majestic flying marvels of bioengineering will have to terminate. So be it, we must properly showcase our product to the world. Starting with this project, we believed in the strength in numbers, thus we wished to utilize a flock or swarm. So we obviously turned our attention to arthropods, one of the only three phyla of animals to have achieved flight. For our base, we chose a surprisingly unorthodox creature from the Carboniferous Mazothyros enormis. Most would have utilized Meganeura, given it's the largest arthropod to ever fly and how it possesses one of the best flying profiles in the animal kingdom, that of odonatans, dragonflies, and damselflies, with the Meganeura itself being a griffin fly. It would have made for the perfect choice. However, odonatans have two crucial disadvantages that makes cooperation between individuals a very difficult task, even when adding eusocial insects into the mix. First off, a propensity for cannibalism. We do not want our assets eating each other before deployment. And secondly, odonatans are visual hunters and do not have a particular tuned sense of scent. They do have antennae, but they're small and not highly specialized for olfaction when compared to moths or eusocial insects like bees or ants. Their neural and sensory systems are heavily geared toward vision-based hunting and not chemical detection. And as a result, they wouldn't really be able to pick up chemical pheromones that are the backbone of eusocial insect colonies. Any sense of coordination would be impossible. Thus, Mazothyros is a much better suited base, given the presence of large antennae from the get-go and no cannibalistic tendencies that we know of. But now we ran into another issue. The age of the giant arthropods ended. In the Carboniferous, it is not a matter if we can genetically engineer these giant arthropods back to life. The atmosphere has changed, and arthropods lack the capabilities of intaking oxygen in large enough quantities to sustain large bodies in our current atmosphere. While the assets at this stage could survive in a sealed greenhouse with its own oxygen-rich atmosphere, that is not the objective of this project. We had to get creative in order to make the assets capable of sustaining a large body in the present atmosphere and maintain congruity. For that, various gene donors were utilized, starting with the five-horned rhinoceros beetle. Beetles are among the largest insects in the present day, and that is thanks to their disproportionate trachea and air sacs that reduce oxygen diffusion distances. We also took its sturdier thorax to have the assets more well defended on the front. Followed up by a versatile donor, the backswimmer, with an inconspicuous trait that's easily overlooked, hemoglobin, the type of blood almost all vertebrates use, being extremely efficient at transporting oxygen when compared to arthropods' hemolymph. We also implemented their capability to stay submerged for a longer period of time, and while this wouldn't result in our assets being amphibious, like real backswimmers, it would keep them from quickly drowning should they be submerged in water, allowing them to waddle their way to the shore. And finally, for this section, the fruit fly, how it will help our asset intake more oxygen is thanks to their spiracles, which have the capability to be rhythmically opened and closed in tight coordination with their wing beats, effectively sharing the respiratory load among multiple spiracles, increasing oxygen intake significantly during flight. having much more stamina than any insect would under normal circumstances. But that's not the only thing the fly provides. We took its sight and reflexes as well, implementing their complex compound eyes and their interneurons. We were capable of giving our asset an extremely quick visual processing, allowing them to see their visual world at rates approaching 200 Hz. That being much faster than any contributor in Vault or Maggie's donors. For reference, this allows the assets to react 4 times faster than a human and almost twice as fast than their adversaries, giving them more time to react to an attack and reposition themselves for a counter. All these donors allow our assets to sustain a large enough size for the task at hand. Now we had the size, but we had to give the assets the tool to terminate their targets, starting with the power of some jolly cooperation. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. We couldn't just add a eusocial insect into the mix and have a completely functional colony cooperation. As a result, the vast majority of insects are not capable of sustaining such caste systems that will most likely result in deformed individuals or individuals with the instinct to create colonies of their own, which will result in infighting. There is, however, one colony system found in ants which suits our purposes and is flexible enough to be utilized by our assets, one that our next donor provides. The Asian bullet ant, with its Gamergate colony system. Rather than a queen, Asian bullet ants are a worker-only colony, but only one of these workers is fertile and capable of laying eggs, as the dominant worker castrates its offspring so they have no desire to reproduce or challenge her, just work for the greater good of the colony. Excluding such brutality, Asian bullet ants still are capable of forming functional colonies and follow complex pheromone messages. Thus, our assets colony system goes by the same rules, all the benefits of eusociality, but without any risk of deformity or infighting. In a perfect setting, that is. Followed up, we wish to provide our assets a way to get through their adversaries' defenses with the Australian raspy cricket, providing us with strong jaw muscles capable of chewing wood on their small scale, such mandibles being only strengthened by the enlarged size of our asset, more than enough to get through scales and plumage with ease. We also included the jumping legs from the cricket, which would allow the asset for a way to evade danger should it be grounded, and a way to quickly take off into the sky. Following up and making use of the newly added jaws, the next donor was meticulously chosen to ensure it would be effective against the defenses of Volt and Maggie, that donor being the Brazilian wandering spider with its fangs and its signature venom PHTX3. We were aware of Maggie's opossum contributor, which are famously resistant to many snake venoms thanks to their lethal toxin neutralizing factor, or LTNF protein, that targets metalloproteinases and other enzymatic toxins in snake, scorpion, and bee venoms. However, the venom of the Brazilian wandering spider is almost entirely composed of small, neurotoxic peptides that act on voltage-gated ion channels rather than metalloproteinases. While opossums are champions at neutralizing large enzymatic toxins, that mechanism does not extend to the tiny ion channel modulating peptides of the Brazilian wandering spider. And despite their extraordinary resistance to bacterial pathogens and certain chemical toxins via gastric acids and their immune defenses, turkey vultures have no special protection against venoms, much less the one we are utilizing. So Volt won't fare any better against the venom. Should any of them be bit, considering the large dose delivered at this scale, there would be a very high chance for a single dose to be lethal. Should any be envenomated mid-air, it would take a huge strain on their capability for flight as they would fight more desperately to maintain altitude as their wing muscles twitch uncontrollably, and they find themselves incapable of coordinating their wing beats, forcing the envenomated target into a steep glide or, in a worst-case scenario, a free fall. And if the crash doesn't kill it, respiratory arrest or full paralysis will. Continuing on with an unorthodox donor, we included the honeypot ant for its flexible abdomens, allowing them to grow and swell with food reserves. But there won't be any food being stored in there with our last gene donor and the ace of this assets, the bombardier beetle. We obviously included its capability to shoot out a chemical spray as a defense mechanism. We actually overexpressed this gene, most of the space inside the asset's abdomen being taken up by the combustion glands. As a result, this is taken to an extreme, as the flexible abdomen of the honeypot ant allows for even more gas to be stored than usual, sometimes to the detriment of some assets. But we didn't include it because it works, but rather because it doesn't. The mechanism of the bombardier beetle can only work at an extremely small scale. Otherwise, it would kill the animal when it tries to utilize it. But if you are caught in between Maggie's talons or in Volt's beak, you might as well be dead. Yet, revenge from this grave might come in right after, as at this scale, should any of our assets utilize their chemical spray, it would result in an explosion equivalent to that of a hand grenade. The explosion being even stronger in a hypothetical swelled-up individual, more than enough to kill or delim either of the two targets. Another added benefit is that our asset does not require to use its chemical spray for it to go off. Should any severe damage be done, in an instant on the abdomen, the explosion would be triggered as a result. So, if a cunning enemy attempted to bypass the armored front and attack the plump, soft abdomen, they would be met with an explosive surprise. It is with great pride we introduce Megalopterus detonans, codename Boomer, as our hybrid being sent to this war in the skies. Our battleground of choice will be the forested area where we predict our assets will perform best, and we'll be sending 5 specimens, 1 gamergate, and 4 workers, one of which is swelled up and barely capable of flight. It would be absolutely overkill if it exploded, as it would pack an explosion stronger than that of a grenade, but it would make for an easy target in the skies, like walking into a landline in the sky. Given their volatile nature and short explosive lives, we refrained from nicknaming all specimens, but this one in particular we nicknamed Fat Man. In honor of one of Zeinreborn's own assets, and due to how some might say it's fitting, we'll name our team Team Kamikaze. And while we don't expect all our brave pilots to return, definitely not you, Fat Man, we trust they'll claim swift and decisive victory.